Marvel has done a rather immaculate job in transforming the comic superheroes to the ones on screen. Now, even though Marvel and 21st Century Fox have presented most of the characters as true to their comic appearances and personalities, there might have been way too many modifications in other characters, giving them a completely different look and feel. Let's dive right into it. First up is Mantis. The movie portrays Mantis as an innocent and kind-hearted alien. In contrast, the Mantis from the comics has a very different story to tell. The comics show Mantis born into a German and Vietnamese household that later gave Mantis away to Kree. Kree took a look at her and declared that Mantis had a higher purpose in life. She had telepathic powers, which could prove to be a massive significance in the fate of the universe. Such details were more or less tweaked in the MCU. Additionally, if you haven't read the Guardians of the Galaxy, you probably won't be aware that besides being kind-hearted and loving, Mantis was highly skilled at martial arts, had telepathic abilities along with the ability to perform astral projection, as per the book. So there's a lot of development that needs to be done by the MCU for Mantis' character. Next we have Starhawk. All hail to the living legend Mr. Sylvester Stallone. The way Stallone immersed himself into the character simply elevated Starhawk's value in the eyes of the audience. Now, coming back to our spot the difference activity, Starhawk, aka Stakar, is again a character from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. In the movie, he's shown as the leader of the Ravagers and as someone who's extremely against human trafficking. Now, what we find strange is that Stakar is someone who doesn't find anything wrong with indulging in other problematic activities, but human trafficking is simply a no-no for him. In contrast, if you read the comic version, you might remember that Stakar has never meant to be shown as a leader and didn't possess any leader-like qualities. In fact, he was barely a member of the group, considering other members of the Ravagers found it difficult to tolerate him. This was primarily because of his annoying habit of keeping almost everything a secret from the group. He always referred to himself as the one who knows, and that would drive his peers nuts. Of course, he did have a certain edge over the others, considering he could literally go back in his life cycle, reliving all parts of his life a countless number of times, and so he did have slightly more wisdom, but enough to, well, constantly brag about it. Another difference that we see in the MCU and the comics is that the MCU shows Stakar banishing Yondu from the Ravagers, while in the comics, Yondu is far from being banished. In fact, it's the other way around. Stakar was the one who had gotten himself banished since he was neither reputable nor did he make good enough decisions for the well-being of the group, and so Ravagers did not see a reason for him to still remain a part of the group. Now on to Bucky Barnes. MCU did quite a wonderful adaptation of the character of Bucky Barnes, picking up the right details from the comics and incorporating them into the films. However, there are a few notable exceptions that are evident in Bucky's character in Captain America. Let's start off with the comics this time. The character is shown to be an orphan who joined a training camp where his father died before World War II had even started and became an unofficial member of the Klan. That training camp essentially became the meeting point of Bucky and Steve Rogers. The story then progresses into Bucky becoming Steve's other half, always being by his side no matter what, and then finally having a revelation that Steve might just be Captain America. Now let's get to the film bit. Bucky and Steve are portrayed as childhood best friends with an unbreakable bond. In many instances, Bucky is also seen as protecting Steve from any bullies, standing up for him whenever he could. Later on in the movie, we see that Bucky gets killed during World War II, which causes his best friend Steve an immense amount of sorrow and regret. Up next is Deadpool. This might be just one of the really few instances where we've loved an anti-hero this much. He's snarky, he's goofy, he's effortlessly hilarious. Deadpool is precisely an all-in-one package, and we love it. Now, on-screen Deadpool isn't that different from his comical counterpart, though the original character didn't have such a witty, savage element to it, and was in fact a villain initially, who established himself as a competition to DC's supervillains Deathstroke. Funnily enough, some people claim that Deadpool is more of a replica of Deathstroke, rather than Deadpool serving a competition to Deathstroke. This is evident from the fact that both villains have swords and guns as their main weapons. And now for Rogue. This is yet another character who started off their Marvel journey as more of a villain than an anti-hero, let alone a hero. One major similarity between the on-screen and the comic counterpart that both have their power-sucking abilities intact, but the difference is evident in the fact that the comics show Rogue as an ally of Mystique initially, and helping her out with the dirty work, then essentially sparked a fight between her and Captain Marvel, and she sucked all her powers out. Instead of retaining them for a short period of time, Captain Marvel sucked out powers lasted for more than decades with Rogue. In contrast, if you watch the X-Men, please do if you haven't yet, Rogue's character is far from seeming villain-like. She's more of a kind-hearted, sweet teenager, having absolutely no evil tendencies. All she wants is Xavier's guidance and guardianship to tame her uncontrollable powers. Next on the list is Aldrich Killian. This antagonist can be seen in Iron Man 3, and radiates a rather dark vibe considering he plays the role of a depressed scientist. The comics portray him as someone consumed by unfortunate circumstances, but not bad at heart, so he built a machine called Extremis, and sold it to the terrorists as a way to help them take over the world. But soon he realized this wasn't what he actually wanted, watching the entire world fall apart. An immense amount of guilt struck Aldrich. Now in the MCU version, the film pretty much shows Aldrich's character in the same light. In the film, the antagonist is a disabled scientist who wholeheartedly loves and admires Tony Stark. However, Tony rejects some of Aldrich's ideas, and to Aldrich it means seeking vengeance from Tony. He finds a terrorist organization and creates an army along with the Extremis weaponry, becoming the ultimate villain to the hero Tony Stark. Up now we have the Mandarin. Iron Man had considerably weak supervillains in the first two parts, and the viewers weren't getting that big of a thrill. That made the makers bring a new villain into the equation, aka the Mandarin. He certainly filled the void of the people who thought Iron Man needed a stronger villain. Mandarin is essentially a Chinese sorcerer who makes use of 10 rings he wears to create magic. Now what the MCU did was implant a plot twist related to Mandarin's character. The film revealed that Mandarin was merely a paid actor who was hired to distract Tony Stark from Aldrich's vicious activities. Apparently Mandarin was just a pretend terrorist, and this twist upset a lot of Iron Man fans. Continuing on now to Juggernaut, yet another character from the X-Men series that was portrayed differently from what was mentioned in the comics. We're talking about none other than Juggernaut from X-Men The Last Stand. In fact, his character's portrayal in the movie is quite inaccurate according to the comics. Juggernaut isn't shown as a mutant, whereas in the movie, his character seems as most certainly a mutant who is seen fighting criminal mutants on various instances. There's another tweak made in the film, or rather, forgetfulness in mentioning the character's backstory in the movie. Originally, Juggernaut was shown as Xavier's stepbrother, and this little fact was completely ignored in the infamous movie Deadpool 2. And finally, we have Yondu. We have another member of the cast of Guardians of the Galaxy here on the list. Any guesses? We're talking about none other than Yondu, a founding member of the Guardians and a centaur. In the comics, Yondu is shown to be someone extremely religious with high principles. He had a lot of appreciation for Mother Nature and shared a deep connection with it. With a moral compass that high, Yondu would literally consider ending his life if he ever found himself doing something immoral. His soul just wouldn't find peace if he'd done something wrong. If Yondu in comics ever saw Yondu in the movie, he would be very disappointed in himself. Again, if you watch the movie, you might notice that Yondu in the MCU has little association with morals, and the on-screen one apart from both having a flying arrow and red fin. That's a wrap for this video. Are there any other Marvel characters that you know of portrayed differently in the MCU from the comics? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one!